Welcome, Sagittarius, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 23rd of February for the Ascendant, the Sun, or the Moon. I'm going to share with you, first of all, the big themes of the week. Then on screen, your event chart on Monday. I'll unpack that for you too. It's always influential for the whole 7 days. I'll then go through each of the key influences in detail, frame by frame, to give you a clear picture of what you can look forwards to in terms of relationships, money, energy, and work. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please do so now and help it to continue to thrive. As you go into this week, your ruler Jupiter is blessed by a beautiful angle to Venus. The significance of this is these are the two benefits in traditional astrology. Jupiter is still in a retrograde and it's in your eighth house, which can be about long-term finance, but it can also be about understanding your deeper evolution in a psychological context. But you do have a big cluster of energy right at the root of your chart, very much to do with home and emotion. And that's definitely going to be evoked this week, not least on Tuesday when the sun in that area squares off with the moon. Quarter moons happen twice a month. As we see it from Earth, the moon looks like it's a half moon, but this one is in the mercurial Gemini. And for you, very much about relationships. What's the significance of that when there's such a sensitive bedrock within your chart at the present time? Now, you may have heard Mercury goes retrograde on Thursday through to the 20th of March. Mercury retrogrades have quite the reputation for things going awry around technology, gadgets, travel, ticketing, anything we buy or sell online. But Mercury retrogrades also have opportunities. What's it going to be for you? So on the screen now, Sagittarius, is your event chart. And there's your lovely ruler Jupiter. Yes, he is still in retrograde through to the 11th of March, but that link to Venus is significant. The reason being, both players, both planets, are exalted in their locations, which means they have an extra gloss, an extra dimension. Also, Jupiter is the traditional ruler of the sign of Pisces, so that creates a mutual receptivity. If you were talking about perhaps buying a property or leasing or renting one, or perhaps thinking about or discussing something dear to your heart, I feel that there is the potential at the start of this week for things to really evolve in a constructive way through their influence. But we also need to be mindful of the role of Mars. Because if you recall, Sagittarius, when we came into the year, there was a big cluster of energy in the sky in Capricorn, which for you, very much about foundations, your values, your sense of self-worth, and your attitude to resources and money. They evolved into the sign of Aquarius, and for you, life sped up. And it had been very exciting. Now, Pluto will remain in that third house for the long term through to 243, but Mars is about to exit after being here for 5.5 weeks. We'll move into Pisces and catch up with the other Piscean posse on the 2nd of March. But Mars in the sign of Aquarius is very principled and in a way shares some of the characteristics of the things that inspire you. Fairness, big ideas, being progressive, certainly resists any kind of control. And it may have made you much more physically active over those last 5.5 weeks. But just when the root of your chart, the fourth house, and particularly the sun and the node, and the aforementioned Mercury about to go retrograde on Thursday, just when they're asking you to be just a little more connected to what you want in terms of home, family, the more decorative side of your abode, the more functional side of it, and also where you're being pulled, which is the North Node, instinctively, that creates a greater sense of nurture and security. But Mars is going to be moving to exit Aquarius, but as he does, squaring with Uranus. And Uranus over these last years, apart from the 4 months of last year in Gemini, has been making it difficult to relax at times. In the sixth house, it may have made you hyperactive. You may have been incredibly inspired at times in terms of innovation. You may have started a new business. It may be to do with technology. It probably provides a service, but it may have made it more difficult to switch off. And that angle between Mars and Uranus, a third sixth house energy, can amplify the tension which has been palpable at times over these recent years from March 2019. Ironically, the two were in a square like this when Uranus made its first initial visit to Taurus in mid-May 2018. So you may find it a little bit difficult just to tune out from a desire to get things done quickly, very efficiently, but also very much in an innovative way too. And these energies, in some ways, may frustrate you. It could be people close to you that want to spend time with you, want to pause, or suggest you do just when you want to crack on, because that is such a high tension energy. So just be conscious of that, because I feel as much as these fourth house energies can be very nurturing, you may feel that if someone wants to redirect your attention away from what's really grabbing it in a more stimulating way, that could be a turn off. But on Tuesday, that quarter moon, because the moon moves into Gemini by then, that's your sector of relating. It's a great place for the moon to be, generally the seventh house. But the host Gemini for you is where the moon is a bit lost, because it's an air sign. It's much more about mental communication than feeling, which is what the moon's about. It's possible that two people close to you may not be seeing eye to eye and want you to play the role of the mediator. But then again, someone close to you may seem out of sorts, or you may lean into their needs and be very sensitive to them, but they may not appreciate it, or vice versa. And then on Thursday, Mercury goes retrograde in that area. Mercury's not great in the fourth house, and in the sign of Pisces, it's detrimented. And that's because Mercury likes precision, it likes coolness, it likes some cold detachment. And it is, of course, about communication, whereas the sign of Pisces can be much more subjective and also very psychological. And if you do find through the retrograde through to March the 20th that you're rethinking something about your home life, or perhaps a plan to move home, or you may decide to start a business from home, which could be one of the opportunities that Mercury retrograde gives you, but some kind of movement or fluidity around your thinking as far as home or emotional or family life is possible in the interim. And inevitably with Mercury, there can be some crosswires, snags, and misunderstandings. So do work hard at trying to clarify things. But you get a great opportunity to do so at the end of this week, because as Venus moves forward and Mercury retrogrades and the Sun moves forwards and combines with the North Node, as the week draws to a close, despite that highly strong right angle between Mars and Uranus, there could be a really calm and very constructive conversation you have with someone, or it may be something you think about yourself, and a guiding energy can emerge. And it may require you to flex and change what you had thought you'd do before Mercury's retrograde. But just know the charm of Venus, the persuasion of Mercury, but most of all, the instinct of the Sun combining with the North Node. If you tune into your instinct, it will guide you. Think of the Saturn years. It only ended on the 14th of February. Of course, Saturn did move into Aries from the 25th of May last year to the 1st of September. And during that time was pushing you to structure your creative output more carefully. But over the last 2.25 years, more broadly, there may have been times when you felt quite limited or frustrated with things at home, whether it was the physical space or lack of it, clutter, maybe your flatmate may be in a too busy environment, too quiet environment. Maybe there were some building issues and repairs that were needed. And Saturn taught you about being steadfast, but most of all, letting your emotions come through. Because being a fire sign, but also mutable, and having a very dynamic nature, your instinct is always to move forwards at pace. It's not to spend too much time navel gazing. But what you learnt over the last couple of years with Saturn was to give yourself the time to just digest and let emotions percolate through you. And if you can do that by the end of this week, I feel you will end it like you start it, feeling really connected to what's really important to you. So, in terms of relationships, sensitivity is going to be important this week, but you also need to connect with people where it feels right. In terms of money, Jupiter definitely offers you opportunities. In terms of your professional situation, the path of fortune is right at the top of the chart. You never know who you may talk to and how much they can be impressed by what you have to offer. And in terms of your physical energy, for sure, Saturn being in Aries, which is very much about the body, does suggest for us all that we've got to pace ourselves. But most of all for you, I think when you're inspired, that gives you energy. So whatever you're doing this week, it needs to count for you in a meaningful way. Discover what March holds in store for you by clicking on your March deep dive video on the screen. Also on the second screen gives you the opportunity to join me at my new website. There's lots of exciting information. It's not generic like a lot of horoscope sites are. It's all written very much from the heart, and it would be great to have your company. And if you've yet to order your personal horoscope forecast and life roadmap combination at 50% off, if you get the Natal version, please apply Astro 26 at the checkout and you'll get that 50% off. If you'd like to understand your soul or karmic version, the draconic option, please add at the checkout Draco 26.